In the early days of movies, editing consisted of physically cutting and connecting strips of film in order to tell a story. Because this task required extreme precision and attention to detail, avoiding mistakes was not easy for the editors. Just imagine having to work on a project without an undo button. Okay, you can stop thinking about that now, I'm not here to torture you. Today, much editing is done digitally, which gives editors much more control and alleviates some of the pressure of physical cutting. But even with improvements in film technology, small mistakes can still slip their way through the editing process. Today we're going to explore some of those mistakes that made their way into the final versions of popular movies, starting with the introduction of MCU's Spider-Man.
Hey! You're that Spider guy on YouTube, right? Call me Spider-Man!
Honestly love all three versions of the Spider-Man, and I think that each actor brought their own unique twist to the character. But I don't think I'm alone when I say that even though I was excited, I was also a little bit anxious when they announced the third iteration of Peter Parker. That's why it was super important that Sony and Disney nailed this portrayal of the web slinger. Except they missed one thing in the editor's room. In Tom Holland's introduction in Captain America Civil War, we get Cap getting webbed up and the iconic superhero landing.
Alright, I've run out of patience. On to ruse!
However, during Peter's vlog in Spider-Man Homecoming, we revisit that scene, except this time he says,
"Okay, that's me. I gotta go. Hey everyone.
This editing mistake can probably be chalked up to the fact that a different team worked on each movie. Also, the MCU is such a huge franchise now that continuity errors are almost guaranteed every now and then. Keep that in mind because we're going to come back to the MCU. But first, let's go back in time and look at the first ever Spider-Man universe. 2002 marked the year Sony began its Spider-Man trilogy starring Tobey Maguire. During filming, the movie's director Sam Raimi challenged Maguire to pull off a practical stunt where he had to catch Kirsten Dunst and her entire tray of food. We all know the scene.
Wow, great reflexes.
It took over 150 takes to nail. Why not just do it digitally, you ask? Well, that wouldn't make much of a headline. With all their focus and energy being put into getting that shot down, it's not surprising that the spilled juice that Dunst slipped on mysteriously disappeared later in the scene. One reason why mistakes like this even slip by us as an audience is because we're already so absorbed in the story that we're not going to think to ourselves, oh man, the juice is spilled, I guess the story's ruined. I think that's a testament to the strong storytelling of each of the films on this list. Going back to the MCU, another mistake that slipped by editors and might have gone right over your head was in Avengers Infinity War. In the film's first act, Tony tells Pepper about a dream he had in which they were expecting.
Last night, I dreamt we had a kid. So real.
Pepper kindly rebuttals that he wouldn't still be Iron Man if he wanted to become a dad. Although this was a heartwarming moment that foreshadowed the events of Endgame, the mistake here was Tony's jacket disappearing midway through the scene and never coming back. This isn't the only time a mistake involving costume and wardrobe has gone overlooked in film. In fact, it's actually more common than you think.
Ridiculous!
Throughout Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, Harry experiences nightmares where he lives out Voldemort's memories. During one of these nightmares, Harry is shown struggling to get a restful sleep in a light blue t-shirt. He then awakes with a wardrobe change into a darker Henley shirt. This mistake is a result of Harry actually wearing that shirt during a nightmare later in the film. But the Harry Potter franchise could probably get away with a lot of editing mistakes just because it could be blamed on wizardry. I mean, easy way out. Okay, last MCU slip up, but I had to talk about this one. The exciting conclusion to the Infinity Saga, Avengers Endgame, included the most action-packed final act of the MCU. But before the giant battle begun, it was just Iron Man, Cap, and Thor vs Thanos, in which Cap's shield was pretty much destroyed. When Thanos' army arrives and all hope seems lost, we get a sequence of every MCU hero arriving to back the three leads. However, during this sequence, if we take a closer look at Steve Rogers, his shield is no longer broken. This error is a bit hard to catch when you're focused on the entire cast of the MCU uniting. Again, this isn't story breaking, but Endgame was such a huge project with a lot riding on it that of course the editors felt that pressure and were bound to miss a couple things here and there. Next up, we've got the sequel to Terminator and one of the most dangerous stunt scenes of the film. During its pursuit of John, the T-1000 breaks into a helicopter mid-flight, resulting in one of the greatest moments in cinematic history.
Get out.
Isn't it beautiful? Even though the T-1000 broke a huge gaping hole in the helicopter's windshield, there is one shot of it flying where the windshield is magically fixed. Now it's possible that the editors noticed the mistake as glaring as this one, but since the stunts in this scene were so ambitious, it's not surprising that the filmmakers decided to leave it be, as it probably would have blown the budget. The editors were pretty sneaky about hiding this one though. They used the fact that it was a fast-paced scene, shot at night, and added dark color grading to hide the fixed windshield. So you'd have to really be looking to notice this mishap on your first watch through. Speaking of darkness and nights, this trilogy was perfect. Even the mistakes of those movies helped elevate them to the legendary status that they have. But we will talk about a series of Batman movies that came before, specifically Batman Returns.
You missed.
Yo, holy shit, he dead!
In 1992, Warner Bros. Released the second movie of the Batman franchise, which would introduce a romance between the Dark Knight and Catwoman. Their relationship will carry on into the climax of the film, in which Batman attempts to calm Catwoman by removing his mask, only with the unintended result of his eye makeup disappearing.
Right down the center.
We could only assume that the costume wasn't designed with the face reveal in mind, and that the editors were probably put in a situation where they had to pray the audience didn't notice this small detail. Back to the Wizarding World. Well, that's hard to say. Wizarding World. Okay, back to the Wizarding World. One of the most infamous mistakes in the Harry Potter franchise was in the Chamber of Secrets. During the magical duel between Malfoy and Harry, the two send each other flying with their respective spells. This happens after being specifically told only to aim to disarm in order to avoid any accidents, because Hogwarts does not need another lawsuit on its hands after they both get sent flying on their asses. If you look closely, you can see that there's a cameraman visible in the crowd of students. Reportedly, he was there because the extras were so young that it limited the movie's filming schedule, so they needed to capture every angle they could in order to have a lot to work with later. But because the editors missed him, this guy made it into the final cut and is forever immortalized in the Harry Potter universe. This wasn't the only time in a movie a crew member was caught on set. At the end of the first Pirates of the Caribbean, a crew member with a cowboy hat is seen for a split second while Captain Sparrow commands his pirate crew to ready the ship.
On deck, you scabbards!
This is a blink and you miss it moment, so it's pretty understandable that the editors could have missed this guy. But on the other hand, cowboys didn't exist with pirates, so get this guy off set.
You need to leave!
The last mistake I wanted to explore is from none other than the fourth installment of the Jurassic Park franchise, Jurassic World. While the theme park's team is searching for an escaped I-Rex, we are shown a screen depicting the heart rates of a military squad tracking it down. However, the editing team missed that each of the squad members have the exact same heart rate. The graphic was shifted a bit to give the illusion that they were different, but anyone with a keen eye could see that all these men's hearts were pretty much synchronized. In an alternate universe, they all fuse, take down the I-Rex, and the movie ends with a 20-minute runtime. The most important thing to remember about these mistakes is that they're mostly inconsequential, and unless your Spidey senses levels of observant, they won't take you out of the stories being told. I guess what I'm hoping you guys take away from this video is that people make mistakes, and even with thousands of eyes overseeing a project, sometimes you can't beat human error. And you know what, that's okay, because without that I'd probably be out of a job. Thanks for watching.